now. So a couple people already tuned in. Hello. How's everybody doing? All right, tweet is now out. A slightly different setup today, so I'm actually on a standing desk, which is what I use most of the time. But sitting down today, figured I'd actually spend maybe the last half of the day standing up, try and burn off some of this lunch that I just packed on. So we'll see if that works. Let's see here. Trying to think. I actually don't have a list of anything specific that I was going to work on. That's kind of where all of you, my wonderful friends on the interweb, come in handy. If you come across slow, broken sites, or maybe you're just learning web development. This is something I got so the W3C, the Worldwide Web Consortium, or whatever it is, had a tweet yesterday, and they were asking people, how did you come about, how did you first come across the internet? And they wanted people to tweet to them, let them know how it was that they came across the web and where they are today, I guess, presumably. And so I went ahead and shared, and I said, I was 15 or 16 or so when I first got a computer. And during those summers, I spent many nights sleeping on the trampoline in the backyard. Lots of fun. But during the work portion of the summer, I worked on farms in the area. And I also swept the floor of a small local barbershop. And so much fun. I made $10 sweeping the floor at the local barbershop. It was more than just sweeping the floor. I swept the floor and cleaned the counter and restocked the vintage Coca-Cola machine. It's so cool. But we got our first computer. I kind of told my mom, for homework purposes, I really need to get a computer. It was really just to play this Star Wars game, Dark Forces 2. And so my mother took, I think it was like $400 or something, went to Walmart across the river, across the Wabash River into into Princeton, Indiana, and purchased us a computer from Walmart, purchasing along with it Deer Hunter, like the original old school Deer Hunter. And I managed to get a bootleg copy of Jedi Knight Dark Forces 2 from a friend of mine. I've purchased it like 3 times since then. So, in fact, this game was so influential in my life that I keep a sealed copy of it at the house in my closet. So she got us this computer, brought it home. 15 years old, 16 years old, never used a computer in my life. I think I might have tried to play the Snake or something on a friend's computer at his house. I've never owned a computer. I'll say that. Like I've used computer in a school and stuff like that, but I never owned a computer, and had no idea what the internet was. I thought it was just like a phone call to another machine. And in a sense, it kind of is, but like I had no idea. I had no idea what a modem was or anything like that. And so we got this computer. I tried to do homework the very first night. We got these awesome semi-translucent 3.5 floppy disks. Pretty incredible. 1.44 megabytes, a whopping amount of data you could store on those. And I was trying to do my science homework, and I couldn't figure it out. Like I was like, how do you put this? How do you take what's on the screen and you put it on this disk thing? And I remember I think I called my science teacher, and I was like, I don't know how to save my homework. She was like, you need to save it to the disk. And I was like, okay, how do I do that? She's like, well, you click on file and you save it to the disk. Okay, I think at the same time, around the same time, Windows 95 or so, saving it to the hard drive was labeled as save to disk. So I saved it to the disk. I saved it to my hard drive. Who knows where? I think at that time on Windows, we had this thing called my briefcase or something. I might have saved it inside there. Who knows? Anyway, I took this thing to the school the next day. There's no homework on it whatsoever. So this was kind of my first experience with the web. And this was kind of what the W3C was asking for. And so around that same time, I got the Star Wars game. And I could then call using the modem, which I didn't know that my computer had a modem. I had no idea what a modem was. But I was able to figure that out and call a buddy's house. And both of us, I think we had... Our parents gave us 15 to 30 minutes of actual play time that we could use the phone lines, because I think we still had to pay per minute for these calls. And so we played this game, and then I realized you can go online to the MSN Gaming Zone and play this game there as well, and connect with many people all across the world and stuff. You just had to find the ones with the smallest latency, whatever that was. And you could connect with them and play. And so this was like kind of my first experience into the web. Is, I just got my driver's permit, and like the web was competing with my ability to drive a vehicle. Like it's there's, if the weight had been shifted any more in one direction, I may have never kind of become a web developer. And so I wound up really enjoying the web. They had these things at this time. A lot of people were starting to play on the gaming zone, develop clans and guilds and stuff. And so you go and you play a game. If you do fairly well, someone will say, hey, you should join our guild. And so they'll have you do tryouts and stuff. But I wound up joining this guild, which all it really meant was you give your name a prefix on this gaming site. And they had a website, which I really had no idea what this stuff was. And so I got to go and check out this website. It was hosted on GeoCities and everything. It was so cool because they were building this website. I didn't know how they did that or what any of this stuff meant. I had a buddy of mine in high school who was learning to build websites as well. And I asked him, I was like, Daryl, and I still keep in touch with him today. He's a cool guy. I was like, Daryl, man, how do you make a website? And he was like, well, you just write the code. And so, mind you, at this time in my life, write the code was like, what is the code? Like I have no experience outside of like Indiana Jones movies making reference to codes, or the Goonies, reading some notes off the back of a piece of paper or something. Like code meant something very different to me as a young guy. And so I remember I was like, Daryl, man, can you just write the code down for me? Like I'm thinking combination code, like 16, 49, 23, something like that. Do I just like somehow like that weird black screen on my computer when I turn it on, it's got the little words, so I type in the code there and then like out pops a website somehow? Like how does it know what I want it to say? And he was like, no, man, just you learn the code. And so wound up having to figure this out on my own. But it was so amazing because again, this is, at the same time I was spending my summers working on farms, which was awesome work. And to be quite honest, I miss it sometimes today. And I was spending my weekday evenings cleaning Norm's barbershop. And because of computers, because of the web, like I now have a career doing this. And it's so amazing, so much fun. And so here I am now in Redmond, working at Microsoft, a program manager on the Microsoft Edge team, getting to build a browser. And that was another thing, I really liked Internet Explorer. was one of the few developers that did, I think. And it was because Internet Explorer made me a better developer. Let me, I guess, unpack that a little bit. So there was this issue for a long time. In 2012, maybe, I got a job at a company called Apintu. And Apintu was born out of the jQuery project. So Mike Hostetler and Jonathan Sharp, were two jQuery developers, core team members. And they realized that, okay, we need to kind of take this open source framework mainstream. If we're going to get large companies to use this open source software, we have to have some type of support model for it. So they created Apintu. And Apintu had the opportunity to work with Microsoft on trying to fix some of the bugs on the web and trying to encourage better coding practices and stuff. And so that was, I came to Apintu in that context with that charter, basically. And one of the very first websites I got to look at that time, I don't think I was using IE much. In fact, somebody, a friend of mine on Twitter, went back to my very old tweets and found some unsavory comments that I had made about IE in the past. And I decided to leave those up because they represented the spirit of a man who was broken. And it was pretty incredible. So in 2012, I decided to make a move and go to Apintu and work on this stuff to do with Internet Explorer. Was not at all an attractive offer because Internet Explorer wasn't a very attractive browser in the web developer community. So the very first site that I worked on was Nintendo.com. I think that was one of the first ones, which is an incredible website. I mean, it's Nintendo, man. Like, my goodness, like you can't get any more geekier than that. Like there was, Microsoft at the time had they were going to be spinning up an Atari retro site and stuff, but it was Nintendo. And there was this issue in Nintendo where the links on the side, it was a list of links, and they had one layer of nesting. So there were, top level links, and then there was a sub level underneath some of those. And for some reason, in Internet Explorer, the nesting was different than it was in Chrome and Firefox and Opera and other browsers at the time. And that just isn't good, because your first assumption is, well, what the heck is wrong with IE, right? Like, everyone else seems to get it right. IE doesn't get it right. And so it was around this time I discovered Fiddler as well, which I used in the first broadcast today to kind of reduce antag-1.com or something, to kind of mention them on Twitter. And so I used Fiddler at the time, went ahead and created an autoresponder for Nintendo.com, and I was able to start going through and play with some of the markup. And as I found out, the reason why this issue existed was because some of the tags weren't being closed. So I think there was a list item that was open, an anchor that was open, some text, and then another list item that was open. And today in the HTML5 standard, we realize that you don't put list items directly inside anchors. So when an engine comes across that particular markup, they know that, okay, that our present state is we're putting content we're constructing a text node inside of an anchor element. And the next element is an LI. It's a list item. Well, that doesn't go inside an anchor. So let's go ahead and close the anchor. And it doesn't go directly inside of another LI, so let's close that LI and we'll start a new one. Well, that wasn't how IE had interpreted it at the time. IE had interpreted it as, okay, you clearly want to create a new list inside of this list item. And so it constructed an ad hoc UL or an OL, I think it was a UL, and put the list item inside there. And so in IE, you wound up having a list item with a new list inside of it, because that first list item wasn't closed in the markup. And in other browsers, they patched up the markup and they just went on their merry way, and the developer never realizes that their markup was somewhat confusing. And again, this is an affordance that modern engines, including IE and Edge, make for you. They're smart enough to know that you probably meant to close those tags, and so they can close them for you. But at the time, it didn't. It was whatever you asked it to do is what it would do. And that's one of the reasons why I really appreciated IE at the time, because it made me a better developer. It made me be more conscious about what I was doing, about the intent that I was conveying to the machine. Like, my markup had to really communicate unequivocally what I wanted it to do. And if you look in the Nintendo side at the time, every other anchor was closed, every other list item. I don't think actually the list items were closed, but every other anchor was closed. And it might have been every other list item was closed as well. It was just that one. And so, from that point forward, I started, really just appreciating that coarseness, that what you ask me to do is what I will do to the best of my ability. And since then, that was around, I think that was IE 10 that had that particular issue. The engine was already being updated at the time so that it would be better at inferring what the developer intended. And if you compared IE 9, 10, and 11, you got 3 different representations of that particular markup pattern. And this was something that I tweeted out later on as well, because you could see this convergence where Chrome and Firefox and Opera, they were all kind of converging to this common way of handling that markup. And then all of a sudden, IE 10, 11 just jam in there with them as well. And it's like this perfectly woven chord that's moving off into the distance. And all 3 of them were handling the same markup the same way, but it was that transitionary stage where you really needed the developers to be quite explicit in what they meant. And so if they didn't want to start a new list inside of a list item, they should close that list item, just to be completely unequivocal. And so it was really phenomenal, really awesome. And so this is one of the things, I'm kind of rambling here, but I look back at the W3C tweet that says, how did you come across the web and everything? I look at just how magical a place this is. And how everything is, it kind of hits on that immediate gratification, because what you can do on the web, you can do in few other places. I mean, you can stand up a website instantly almost. You can open up your dev tools and you can make changes live to the site. We saw, with Fiddler and even the remote debugging on mobile and stuff like that, we're able to debug everyone's website, everybody's. I can start to make changes to the Microsoft homepage without needing access to the Microsoft server. And it's a phenomenal way to learn. Absolutely phenomenal. Let's see here. There is a tweet that just came in that's pointing to Stack Overflow. Let's see what this is in regards to. How to publish Edge extensions on the Windows Store. Yeah, right now there's a small list of extensions as we build out that platform. And so I don't know that there's any intention there. It's basically right now we have, what we did actually for the extensions, I guess jumping topic, was we realized you needed extensions for a browser to succeed. IE actually had extensions. You had to, Michael West, I'm doing great, man. The IE model of extensions was this really complicated model. I remember years ago I was on the Channel 9 forums, so Channel 9 c9.msdn.com or channel9.msdn.com, and there was a guy in there, super smart developer. I think he might actually work here at Microsoft today. I think he was from Germany, and it was pretty amazing. He had set out to create an extension for Internet Explorer at the time, and this might have been around IE 7 or 8 maybe, and I don't think the extension model had changed since then much in IE. And so he was going through the process of constructing an extension and setting it up and everything, and he was having to write C++, if I'm not mistaken, and this was a super smart developer who's just lamenting the process and saying, oh my goodness, this is hard. Like, how on earth do we expect people to do this? Well, wouldn't we? It was like they, because we were the developer community, and Microsoft was dumping this burden on us by not having a cooler extension model. And so I don't know if he wound up finishing the extension or if he just gave up, because it required so much non-familiar knowledge. We are web developers, and we want to author extensions that work in parallel with the web and maybe even supplement our experience on the web. But this required web developers to enter into a whole nother domain of experience that just is very foreign to us. And so whenever Edge came out and it didn't have extensions initially, it's kind of a big bummer. Many people, Paul Thurrott, I think, was one of the most prominent ones, who said, I simply cannot use Edge until there's support for extensions. And so when you think about, oh my goodness, like there are, tens of thousands of extensions in various web stores online, and how in the world, how do you make up that span of space? And so what we actually started doing was we looked at all of the most popular extensions out there. There's really obvious ones, the ad blocking extensions, the password managers, and that type of stuff. And we looked at what APIs they use. So obviously, if you're going to encourage someone to develop extensions for your browser, you need to support the APIs that are most valuable to them. And so we started looking at just kind of enumerating APIs across popular extensions to see what it is. Like, okay, maybe these, the top 50 extensions have 85-90% of APIs in common. And so if we work on delivering those APIs, we actually open up a broad gateway for many, many extension developers to start to use your platform. And so here we are today with a very handsome API surface layer, I think, and it's growing rapidly. And there's quite a few people who are loving hacking on extensions and stuff. If you go into your browser, you can put it in dev mode and start to sideload extensions and play around with them as well. But right now, it's still very much a budding project. It is in its nascent form, and it's going to get better, and it's going to get bigger, and it's going to get even more amazing. But right now, yeah, there's a small list of maybe a dozen or so extensions inside the Windows Store that we feel probably applies to the vast majority of extension users. And so, I'm using AdBlock, I'm using LastPass, and can I just say it's amazing to finally have LastPass and Edge? Like, this is phenomenal. I would always have to open up Chrome or open up some other browser or just go to the LastPass website, sign into my vault, copy usernames, copy passwords, paste them into fields inside Edge. TweetDeck was, oh my goodness, like just to get into TweetDeck, I'd have to go through like 5 or 6 steps. And even then, I have a lot of Twitter accounts. And so it was just a lot of work to finally get logged in. And so finally having the ability today to be able to right-click on the page, go to LastPass, autofill, select my Twitter handle, and bam, everything is in there, and it's beautiful, and it's working, and I couldn't be happier. So, yeah, extensions, that's a story that is still being told, and it's definitely progressing very nicely. And there are people here at Microsoft who've been phenomenal in their efforts in that space. Colleen Williams, she is just an unsung hero. So if you are on Twitter and you are not following Colleen Williams, C-O-L-L Williams, you have got to change that immediately. You've got to fix that because she is a phenomenal person who truly brings so much sanity to my day-to-day. Like, honestly, if I couldn't turn and ask Colleen what we're doing about X or what is the status of Y, I'd go mad. But she knows everything about everything, and she's just a phenomenal, phenomenal person. So Colleen Williams, follow her on Twitter if you're not already. C-O-L-L Williams. Yeah, but that's pretty much a whole bunch of rambling from me. Michael West, Thomas, how's everybody doing in there? Let's see if we can find perhaps some bugs or something to reduce. Stack Overflow is doing documentation now. That's really exciting. Let's see. Just kind of scanning through Stack Overflow now. I'm kind of curious what questions are on here. Some Angular questions. Angular still getting some love. We actually used Angular on some of our internal pages and stuff. Carlos Eduardo Oliveira Silva says, extensions, could they arrive for Redstone 2? Extensions. So if you think about the browser is like this. I'm going to respond to Carlos first. Se você pode, por exemplo, se você tem pensa o navegador assim, tem no central os ferramentas, o motor, por exemplo, e essa é a parte que eu trabalho. as tecnologias HTML, JavaScript, CSS, essas coisas aqui. As coisas que é necessário para o web funcionar bem. Os web standards, essas coisas. Fora disso, a gente ensinou a aplicação do Edge. E a aplicação do Edge, eu tenho o barra de endereço, tem o back, forward, volta para a página inicial, essas coisas, os tabs, as configurações, tudo isso é fora daquela área, além da área, não sei como fala, é maior. E aquela área lá tem parte que é as extensões. Essa tecnologia tem um outro time fazendo essa parte e é completamente separado do meu time. Meu time está fazendo HTML, CSS e JavaScript. Então, esse time que está fazendo as extensões, eles às vezes precisam de alguma coisa da gente. A gente pode ajudar eles com esses idiomas HTML, JS e CSS. Mas o que eles vão fazer com o produto deles, o timeline deles, quando que eles vão fazer isso, a gente não tem controle e geralmente não tem ideia. Quando que a loja vai abrir completamente para todo mundo, não sei. Essa aqui é fora de minha responsabilidade. Eu não sei se eu eu não sei quando isso vai acontecer, não sei. É muita informação. Se você pensa, se eu quero saber isso, tem muitas outras coisas eu posso saber também. Por exemplo, o povo pergunta se o Edge vai para outra plataforma. Esse também é um assunto que eu não sei. Eu não quero ficar pensando muito disso, porque a gente já tem soluções para os desenvolvedores. A gente tem as máquinas virtuais de graça, tudo isso. Então, eu tento ficar meu time, coloco meu foco no web, na HTML, CSS, JavaScript. E essas coisas eu simplesmente, I simply don't know. Desculpa. Mas você pode experimentar hoje, se você quiser, com as extensões. Você pode ligar o modo de desenvolvimento, o Developer Mode, e você pode experimentar hoje, se você quiser. Mas o dia vem, eventualmente, que todo mundo pode colocar as extensões deles na loja. And so, yeah, we're talking about, just saying, there's so many things beyond my team that I simply don't know. I love to try and help people get answers to their questions, but unless the question is directly related to HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and the web platform, it's simply not something that I can speak authoritatively to. And so, the relationship of timelines and extensions and stuff, honestly, your best is as bad as mine, because Microsoft is a very large company. We have many teams working on different products, and I'm simply, not familiar with what the teams in some of those areas are working on. So I get just as excited about this stuff as everybody else does. So let's see. I keep grabbing the wrong mouse. Okay. One of the things that's kind of Carlos, o Toolkit, essa é uma ferramenta do Microsoft? Da Microsoft? Que foi feito aqui ou não? As I said, one of the things that's kind of frustrating with Stack Overflow is the idea of a reduced example. So you recall, if you were watching the first broadcast today, whenever we were going through and we were reducing the mobile site, that we basically took, I don't know, maybe a few hundred lines of code, and we reduced it down to one line of code, actually. we got it all the way down to just one line that we were running every time the window resize event would fire. And that is the type of reduction that is most easily debugged and most easily approached. And so whenever we're trying to, whenever I'm going to file a bug inside our internal bug tracker system, or I'm going to file a bug on bugs.microsoftedge.com right there. You got to go definitely check that out. And this looks so stupid, right? Because I mean, on the screen it makes sense, but right now I'm just like, I'm looking down like just past my elbow like an idiot. But anyway, Stack Overflow is usually like, hey, I got a problem. My button doesn't click. Bam, here's 600 lines of code. And it's like, what in the world? Like, this freaks me out. Like, you've got to make it simpler than this. And so this is one of the opportunities I think is great about doing these weekend broadcasts, is that I can kind of share how it is that we work on reductions. The Battlefield bug got resolved. Oh yeah, that's right. Did we actually? I'm trying to think what the Battlefield one. Oh, that's right. Yes, it was. There's an unresolved attribute on the body element that hides the body. And the unresolved attribute has to be pop off of there. Did we actually figure out what was the cause? I think, actually, you filed the bug last week or 2 weeks ago or something. So if I go to bugs.microsoftedge.com, sweet, 393.6. So I wonder what exactly the delta is between 393 and 393.6 that causes that. Battlefield.com? Yeah. So that was bug number 8301531. Yeah, I see that. So Brad, looks like he updated the post there and said on the 2nd, so just like, 4 days ago or something. Yeah, that it's working to 14.3936. So if I just load that up, battlefield.com. Interesting. So I am actually on my desktop, and this does not appear to be resolved. And I'm on a newer build than that. So it might be resolved in 14.393.6, but I'm actually not seeing it resolved for me in a newer build than that. So it may have regressed. Yeah, I think I'm going to update the bug, making mention to this, because I am able to repro on my desktop right now. Okay, let's go ahead and I'm going to do that. So I'm going to grab this and see if I can't put some additional notes on here, because it looks like, well, it's fixed right now. It might actually be regressing in the future if this isn't addressed beforehand. Actually, I think I'm just going to email maybe Brad, because he's the one that updated the bug and showed that it no longer repros on 14.393.6. Right, so Silvio is also seeing what I'm seeing, which is just the black screen. And I need to see, actually, I'm running 14.393.10 on this machine. So if I were to fire up a new Edge window, and I'm going to see if I can repro this on 14.393.10. So let's jump into different layout. And this is battlefield.com. So I get the black screen, and it just sits there. Now if I open up my DevTools, what we will find on the body element is the unresolved attribute. So if I were to grab, for instance, let's turn off these. And I'm going to just hammer out a quick code to grab some of the body. I'll do document.body.attributes and grab the first one. Let's see, the attribute here is unresolved. So there is an attribute on the body element of unresolved. If we remove that, document.body.remove attribute unresolved, removing that actually reveals the page. So, and again, I'm inside, if you run winver from the run dialog, you notice I'm inside 14393.10. So, yeah. It looks like that issue is still there, so I'm going to go ahead and reopen that bug. So it looks like that actually, yeah, that merits some additional investigation. Let's see, so Ben is asking my Edge HTML version. So if I open up a new window on Edge, my Edge HTML version in this build is, well, this is 14.393, so Edge HTML 14.393. And the Edge application version number is 38.14.393. So Ben, you're saying on 14.393.10 it shows. Does that mean that you are seeing the battle? You know what? I wonder if it's... Can someone try that with extensions disabled? That might be something relevant. Because like I only have LastPass running on this machine, but if I disable that and turn LastPass off, and I'm going to jump back into battlefield.com with no extensions. Yeah, I'm still just getting the black screen, so it's still not working for me. And if I open up my DevTools and I call into document.body.remove attribute and remove the unresolved attribute, that's where the body fades into view. And so you can see there's clearly something missing here, and it might be these, the CSS file, which the server is not yielding to us. So that might actually be what we want to look into, because there's clearly something still at play, and I don't have any extensions installed right now. And we can jump in and look at the network tab. Maybe. Oh, there seems to be a DPI issue. There we go. Okay, so if we look at the network tab here, you can see I'm getting a couple failed resources. Variables and variables. So those are coming 404s. And there's a 404 right there. That's interesting. So that's, I don't even know like what is going on with this request. This looks like some type of expression is failing to be properly interpolated. Let's see. It's a couple of those 404s again, which is understandable because that is not a valid URL if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. You know what we might even try is to look at this inside another browser real quick. Let's see. Because I wonder if maybe we're getting different network requests depending on the browser that I'm in. Yep, my extensions are disabled as well, and I'm still seeing the issue on Battlefield though. I see. So check the screenshot. All right, so I'm downloading Brad's screenshot. We'll open this up. 14393. But that's that. So whenever we look at, so right now I'm looking at Brad's screenshot here, and the Edge HTML number is exactly what we want to be looking at. So the Edge HTML is the engine number that matters the most in this type of scenario. And so there are two numbers inside there. The first one is Microsoft Edge, which is at 38 in this particular issue. And the second one is the Microsoft Edge HTML. So the Edge is the application. It is the frame around the web page. Your address bar, your tabs, your settings, all that kind of stuff, your favorites, your bookmarks bar, and all that good stuff. That is your Edge app itself. And so that's not going to have an impact. It shouldn't have any impact on the general success or failure of a website. It can impact a website's layout, and it can impact a website's CSS and JavaScript in as much as it can resize the viewport. And so you may have some media queries or something that are based on the actual size and dimension of the viewport, or maybe the layout of it. And that is going to be definitely something that the Edge app itself could influence along those lines. JavaScript as well, if you're using like match style or something like that, you want to see how wide the body is. Definitely that could matter. But in this case, I think it's, this is a JavaScript issue, it seems. So yeah, again, that is the 38. That's the app itself. I'll check with Brad about that to see if why there's that difference between the engine that he was testing, or the app version that he was testing, and what is currently stable. Because this is, so on my Surface Book, I actually don't put this on any nightly builds or anything. This isn't even on the Insiders program. By the way, kudos to the Insiders program and everyone who's an insider. You've done phenomenal work. Thank you all. But yeah, this machine that I actually use is not even on the Insiders program. This just stays on the standard public production version. And so this is, what I have is what everybody else has. And so I'm going to open up this bug again because I'm actually on a version of Edge that is even newer than Brad's that he tested with. I do have extensions running though, but still it's worth mentioning. So let's see, I'm going to do, just going to add a note to Brad real quick. I'm curious, does anybody else repro the issue? Was it actually fixed for you right now, or are you merely taking it on the authority of the bug, or on Brad that it's going to be fixed in 0.6, or have you actually seen the issue resolved for you on your machine? What I may need to do is actually just going off screenshot, Brad. Okay. It may in fact be fixed on whatever build Brad is using, and so I'm making a note right now to him so that we can connect probably next week, and we will kind of look into this even further. But I'm going to head and open up the bug again. I'm going to switch it to active, and I'm going to assign it to myself. Actually, it'll switch back to Brad. So I'm going to, set this as active, give it to Brad, and invite him to lunch or something next week. Okay. All right, so that bug is now active again. Yeah, I'll meet up with Brad about that one, and we'll see if we can figure out what's going on there. It may just be that we need to do the work and reduce it, figure out what the problem is. In fact, I mean, I might be able to. Let's see here. Maybe we'll just do that right now. So I have got, yep, there's, okay, I'm making a connection to a remote machine. All right, so I'm going to jump over real quick and see if we can pull up the site on this remote machine. So this is what we had before. This was the last site that we actually reduced. And so it was basically the entire JavaScript file was boiled down to, yep, change your password. Okay. It was basically all boiled down to this, which is a nice reduction. And let's see. Okay, so let's see here. Let's go ahead and fire up Battlefield then. So I can go ahead and remove these. I don't need these autoresponders anymore. If you need to, you can always set comments on these. Like we can say this was, you know, successful reduction or something. You can put little comments on those if you need to actually keep track of, you know, what they are and everything. I actually I suggested that feature to Eric Lawrence a while back, and the guy turned it around and like had it implemented within a couple of days, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But phenomenal developer, really, really cool guy too. You can follow him at Eric Law on Twitter. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm going to delete this autoresponder as well. And I'm going to, there's my Bing again. Super awesome that they have the JavaScript formatter on there. Let's see, we're going to go to Battlefield. Whoa. Okay, again, I'm inside a virtual machine, so you have to excuse some of the crazy stuff that might happen. Battlefield. So I am able to repro the issue here, which is great. I currently have capturing turned off on Fiddler, which means it's not going to be pulling in any of the traffic. So let's go ahead and fix that real quick. So capturing is on. I want to make sure that I get, I'm going to go here and delete all my temporary data real quick, so I don't get a cached version of it. Now you notice whenever I refresh, Battlefield is, a tunnel is opened. There's the initial request. Here's some other you know, resources that are coming in for it as well, JavaScript files, CSS files, images and fonts and all that kind of stuff. So let's go ahead and decode. Actually, I have decode selected, so that wasn't really necessary, but I can pull that autoresponder over. There's web components. That's right. I remember this being a web components issue as well. Picture fill, clipboard. Let's go ahead and open this up. Edit response, text view. There's actually a syntax view tool extension that you can add here that I might run out and grab. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm gonna go grab that real quick. I think it is, I thought you could get it from someplace in here. Yeah, I thought there was like an area up here where you could actually get that. Let's go grab that real quick. So I'm gonna load up the browser again, and we'll go to, we'll type Telerik Fiddler syntax view. I misspelled fiddler there, but I should be able to find it. Fiddler add-on. Show image bloat. Oh my goodness, you have to get this. This is awesome. So if you follow Eric Lawrence on Twitter, you will find very often he will be not really trolling. I mean, this is there's true value in Eric's troll. I'll say that. And so Eric will actually enable this show image bloat add-on, and what it does is, as you're browsing the web, it'll identify unnecessary bytes being occupied in image resources, things like meta tags and stuff like that. If you save something in Photoshop and you don't strip out all the additional stuff, there's going to be additional information in there about the image itself, stuff that makes the file heavier but doesn't actually contribute to the on-screen pixels. And what this does is it'll actually create a new version of that image that covers up the amount of visual space, on-screen pixels, that reflects the same amount of unnecessary bits inside of the image itself. And so, or unnecessary percentage of the image itself. And so if you have 50% garbage inside your image, you're going to have a 50% wall built up in front of your image. And so it's kind of a cool little tool. It's a nice way to quickly identify images that need to be optimized. And just on a tangent, I guess, real quick, I was talking to somebody today, and they were asking about performance on the web and how they can make websites more performant stuff. And my first suggestion was for images, because when you're talking about make the web faster and making it lighter and everything, one of the first places that people go is, they think, okay, well, I can minify all of my code, which is true. You can do that. I can strip out comments. Another good point. You can do that. I can switch to HTTP2 and actually like open up this pipe and just pump stuff down and everything. And you don't have to have 6 simultaneous connections to 6 weird little subdomains and stuff. And it's all true. You can do all of that. But before you do all of that, probably the easiest thing you can do is just optimize your images. And by and large, you will find more, value in that than you will trying to do any of those other things. Maybe not HTTP2, but you will find so many saved bytes and stuff inside that. I mean, you can create sprites and stuff as well, but optimize your images, optimize the snot out of your images, because that is going to give you a massive, massive boost as far as performance and stuff goes. So, okay, let me switch back to my VM real quick, and that was a small, little bit of a diatribe. But yeah, follow Eric Lawrence for more information about that. Compressibility, nope. We don't want the container loopback utility. Traffic differ, nope. All good stuff. JavaScript formatter, oh, that's, actually, I'm going to download that. That's a good one. This way, I don't have to go to a browser to format my JavaScript. I do think the JavaScript formatter, I thought there was an issue with it in the past. I don't think I'm hoping there's not now. Let's see. So I'm going to install this. Go ahead and close Fiddler while I'm doing that. I'm going to update something on Twitter here. Let's see. Oh, looks like I'm... There we go. It's blocking the chat. Oh, I'm not even sharing my screen. I thought I was sharing my whole screen. Okay. Let's see here. So... little props to Eric Lawrence for his amazing work in this area. So at Eric Law on Twitter. Okay, so let's see. I think my download has completed. I'm going to go ahead and actually share my desktop now, since I did not do that to begin with. There we go. Okay, so let's see. That is all good. So is that completed? That was the JavaScript formatter, and so now I don't have to go to Bing, even though, again, remember, if you do need to format your JavaScript, just go to Bing and type in format JavaScript, I think it was, right? Let's see if I do this. Bing.com. Format JavaScript, and bam, you get a JavaScript formatter right there on the page. So pretty awesome. You can just paste stuff right inside there, and it quickly formats it. You get the same thing too if you're on Bing and you want to do some formatting of JSON data as well. So the JSON JavaScript object notation, there's a formatter for that as well. There's so much stuff on there. Like, I think we have a calculator maybe, and like, yeah, all sorts of just wild things that Bing has built into its engine there. Let's see. So I've got the JavaScript formatter. Gallery, content blocking, nope. Cert, nope. Anywhere, nope. Syntax highlighting, add-ons. This is the one that I want. So this is the a syntax view inspector. Offers syntax highlighting for HTML, JavaScript, CSS, XML, and other web formats. So this is the one that I wanted. Up until now, we've been using the text view option, which is nice, but it only gets you so far. You can accidentally select a curly brace when you didn't really intend to, because you can't distinguish a curly brace from the right paren or something like that whenever you're looking at the end of a function. So let's download this one as well. I'll run that. Good times. I agree. All right, so that completed as well. I think those are the only two extensions that I really want right now. Plenty of other really cool stuff that you might find on here. Request a code. I have no idea what some of this stuff is, but I'm sure it's amazing. So, yeah. What is this? HTML inspector. Andy Cross built this cool extension which analyzes the selected HTML response for inefficiencies like large view state blocks. So there actually might be some additional really neat stuff in there. If you add me on Skype, you know what? So anyone so Ben just asked in the chat here if it is okay to add me on Skype. You're more than welcome to. I probably will never respond. Not anything against you. I just don't talk on Skype a whole lot. But what I have done on occasion, and plan to do more in the future, is actually just talk to people on the phone while I'm driving to and from work. So if you are looking, if you're kind of exploring web development and you want to get into this industry and you have some questions, maybe just some curiosities how certain things work, I have on multiple occasions in the past, enjoyed a 30-minute phone call on the way home with just complete strangers who are like me in few ways, beyond a mutual interest in web development. And so Skype for Business. Ben, are you here at Microsoft? Ben McGarry? I don't know. Anywho, yeah. If you're here at Microsoft, then of course, like, swing by the office sometime. Let's see. So yeah, only one in the comp. Yeah. Oh, you're the only Ben McGarry in the comp. Okay, and only one in the company. See, my mind as a web developer, I'm like, composition. So, okay. Yeah, feel free to add me. I mean, shoot me an email, anything you like. But yeah, the offer goes for anybody else. If you're out there and you want to learn some HTML, CSS, JavaScript, if something's weird, if you're just trying to get a second set of eyes and maybe someone to help understand something, I would be more than happy to sit down, do a screen share, and just talk with you. So, I mean, just let me know. Send me a DM or something like that. I've got plenty of time in my day. I have at least an hour and a half every day where I'm driving. Usually I'm listening to podcasts, but I'm more than happy to plug in my Bluetooth headset here and and talk with you. So let's jump into, let's see, I lost my train of thought. Back to the VM, that's right. So I'm going to drop this back into desktop view, jump back into my VM. So again, maybe some really cool stuff inside here. I'm not really going to spend much more time in there. And again, this is an open extension platform, if I'm not mistaken, so you can develop your own extensions for Fiddler as well if you want to kind of piggyback on some of what Eric has done with the web proxy debugger. So let's close this, and I'm going to open up Fiddler again. Fiddler 4! All right, so we have Battlefield here. I'm going to delete that, and let's go ahead, and at this point I should see some additional, what is that? API test? Oh my goodness, there's some cool stuff just popping up in here. I'm not even aware of some of this. Okay, let's see, I'll delete this all. And I'm going to delete my cache here so I can start fresh. So we'll just, boom, there goes everything. And we are capturing, that means we're actually going to be picking up sessions here. So let's refresh this. There's our Battlefield session. Excellent. Battlefield is still broken, so black screen for us. We know exactly what's causing that. That's the unresolved attribute. And so let's see here. What we want to do is find out what are the conditions for resolution. So before that unresolved attribute can be plucked off of the body element, what has to happen in order for that to be the case, or in order for that to succeed. So I'm going to come in here, I'm scrolling up through the sessions, and I'm going to grab that initial one. This is the 200 response from battlefield.com that starts, the whole waterfall of grabbing more features and stuff like that, grabbing the CSS files. So you notice we have right here 3 JavaScript files that came down as immediately upon parsing the index.html file, followed by a CSS file, followed by some JavaScript down here. Actually, this was typekit. Yeah, so that's for their custom fonts, more than likely. And then some more, there's another page down here. That might be an iframe or something. Some more JavaScript. But really, the main one we're interested in is this one right here. And we're going to go over to the autoresponder section. And I'm going to pull this over into my autoresponder section. Let's go ahead and do edit response. And we should see inside here syntax view. So this is the new extension that I just added, and you'll notice there's a lot of white space in here. Wow, quite a bit. I'm okay with that. That works. Like, this is just apparently these developers of Battlefield really dig them some white space. Let's go down. I'm just kind of looking across everything. So there's a language selector. That's a giant select element. I mean, there's some stuff that we could immediately start pulling out of here. Like we could say, we know we definitely don't need, this giant selector. I'll go all the way up there. We don't need this div. We don't need no stinking divs. Okay, what is this thing right here? Okay, so now we're dealing with some web components and stuff. So we have the age gate, and actually, no, it's just the age gate. So we could probably take that out of there. I'm assuming that's not going to hurt it by getting rid of some of those things. But one thing we can do now is we're just going to dock that to the left, put this over on the right, and we'll refresh and see if we still get a busted experience. And sure enough, we do. So let's see. I'm looking up something over here on my other screen though. Okay. What is this? Nice. Colin is undefined on Twitter. Let's see. That's a JavaScript joke, by the way. So let's see, we have a lot of really serious custom elements inside here. They're using these pretty heavily, so you see all these social links and stuff, and I don't think I can increase the text size, not easily enough. I believe if I go inside the Fiddler options, maybe inside appearance, yeah, font size, I can bump that up to 12. So that increases things across the board, just not inside here. Okay, Well, that's all right. Editor options. Here we go. This is probably what I want. Word wrap, vertical white space, line separators, force scroll bars. Nope, I don't want all this stuff. Let's see. Highlight URLs. Okay, so I guess we don't have the option of increasing the font size. Yep, I apologize. I thought that might be something that we could actually do, but that doesn't appear to be an option inside here. I do definitely want to go in here and turn off word wrap though. Let's sit with that. Okay, so word wrap will give us less wrapping, which is important. So here's a bunch of drop down stuff. I can probably just delete this whole drop down thing. And you know, we're dealing with 2,307, well, much more than that, about 2,400 lines of code, a little more than 2,400 lines of code. So I'll delete this trustee thing, I'll get rid of that. I think, you know, I haven't really, there are still some custom elements inside here, so I don't think I am going to be inhibiting the experience in any way. So if we refresh that, I may just turn my focus. You know what, we do know that the issue is with the unresolved attribute on the body element. So if we come all the way up here to the very top, I can delete some of this white space here, save, refresh. It's a really nice workflow, especially with the windows kind of docked side by side. So I'm going to come back inside here and I'm going to go down to the body element, and I wonder if the page is loaded with the body element having the unresolved. It is. So this attribute right here, it's set on there with no value, so it's being treated as a Boolean attribute, which can just, you know, be on there all by itself. It's like having the checked attribute on an input type equals checkbox or something. You just put that inside there. This attribute is actually what is causing the page not to render. And if we jump into the dev tools here, and so you notice inspect element and view source will now appear in the context menu. So that's it's because this is the first time on this VM that I actually jumped into F12. So this is the DOM right here. This is the document object model. The browser basically takes the HTML, parses it, reads it character by character, and constructs this hierarchy of objects that contain other objects that contain other objects, and all of which contain attributes and properties and all of this good stuff and values. And it's basically laid out on the page, and that is the structure of your page. And then a CSS comes in after the fact, and the CSS is what renders it. You get the CSS object model mashed together with the document object model, and bam, out comes a magical website. And you can see some stuff, and you cannot see some stuff. And in this case, we can't see anything because the body attribute has this unresolved, or the body element has this unresolved attribute, which if you look over here inside the DevTools on the right side in the styles panel, you'll notice there's a selector there that targets any body with the unresolved attribute. And what it does is it sets the opacity to 0. That means it's fully translucent. And overflow to hidden. That's fine. That just means it's not going to be like a scroll bar or anything. So if we were to undo that, now you notice we get a scroll bar. We can scroll up and down, but there's still nothing to see. And that is because the opacity is at 0. So if we were to bump that up to like 0.25, so let's see here. You'll notice that we now can see some stuff back there. So let's see. And you notice as well, it actually kind of transitions into that state. So if I click this and click that off, there's actually a transition on there. So if we were to scroll down, yep, see on the body there is this transition opacity ease in. The opacity is the property that we want to transition. The ease in is the timing function that'll be used for that. So if you think of like a curve, it's not just this linear progression, the animation itself. The animation is written or animated along this this curve that kind of spends more time and at the animation at the very end than it does, or at the very beginning than it does at the very end. And then the 0.2 is how many seconds it should take. So actually if we expand that, you can see that now the transition property is opacity, the transition duration is 0.2. timing function is ease in, and the transition delay, which is actually not present in the above value, is just assumed to be 0. That means it doesn't wait before it causes this transition effect to take effect. So we'll turn that off. Doesn't really matter. But the big thing is this attribute right there, unresolved, is not being popped off of there. And so what I'm going to do is jump into my debugger, and I happen to know that the attribute that we have in mind here is the unresolved attribute. Again, it's because, well, we could just double click there and just delete it with a keystroke, and bam, the whole page is visible now, right? Yeah, of course. Like, we could also come back inside here and we could go through the console. We could say document.body set attribute, and we'll just set the oops, I have to change my keyboard. It's on Portuguese right now. And we'll set unresolved, and we'll just set that to unresolved. Okay, so now we have the unresolved attribute on the body. It's not reflected inside here. Let's see if we open up the DevTools again. That should be reflected, but it wasn't. Okay, so it's there now. And I'll fix the opacity thing, and we want that to be 0 because that's what it is by default, and the overflow hidden and all that good stuff. So this is what we're looking at. This is the default state of the page, and the default state is that nothing is visible. So we're going to jump inside the debugger. We know that essentially that unresolved is what drives this, because if we turn off the opacity, it works. And the unresolved is actually a common pattern used by the web components. I think it is Polymer library. So if we were to, I'm on my desktop now, so you can see me kind of over here doing stuff here. I'm going to type in Polymer unresolved. Yeah, so I can immediately start seeing questions on Stack Overflow. Here's one from 2 years ago that's been viewed 2,500 times that is based on this property. Polymer's FOUC prevention. FOUC is a flash of unstyled content. So sometimes you'll see if the style sheet may be one of the last things that's being loaded, you'll see basically like this old GeoCities looking page, which is a web page with no style. And I'm just getting buzzed by Captain Destructo over here. Captain Destructo on Twitter, Jacob Lamont. He's trying to derail our progress here. And so, yeah, apparently there's this flash of unstyled content issue that they were running into. No, I'm sorry, actually, so Polymer uses, okay, so this is a key description. Polymer uses the unresolved attribute to prevent a flash of unstyled content. And so Polymer, if you're not familiar with it, is a polyfill for web components. It is a way to allow developers to create custom elements in browsers that don't support the ability to register a new element, a custom element. Right now you have, tables, links, style tags, emphasis, strong, divs, spans, unordered lists, all this kind of stuff. But you'll notice in some of these websites, like we saw before, there's like this age gate, which presumably is some type of element that requires you to have a birth year within a certain range or outside of a certain range in order for you to advance to the next page and something. So if you wanted to create a fundamentally new element in the browser that is not merely sufficed by a select element or an input or something like that, then you would want web components or something like that. And so Polymer is an attractive solution for people looking for that. But it takes just a couple of seconds to look up CSS unresolved JavaScript or something, unresolved attribute, and you'll start to figure out, okay, this is a Polymer issue, which gives us a bit of an idea of just how broad this issue could be when you consider the web at large. And so if this is a problem with Polymer on battlefield.com, what we would want to do is make sure that this is, we'd want to determine whether or not this is, a specific version of Polymer, or if Battlefield is using Polymer in a certain way that is causing this problem. And if those first two are not the case, then that means we might actually have like this epidemic on our hands where Polymer across the web, and Polymer's, The barrier to entry for Polymer is a little bit higher than it is for something like jQuery, in my personal opinion. But I don't think Polymer is used as, it's not as ubiquitous on the web as many other JavaScript libraries. But it could still, in fact, be a problem for many, many sites if it is a problem for Battlefield.com. So gaining that understanding of how exactly it's impacting Battlefield.com allows us to kind of extrapolate well beyond that and see, okay, does this impact the web at large? Is this, do we need to put get my bat phone and I'm gonna call Bill Gates directly and stuff, and Satya, get him on the line because I just threw everything on the floor. Okay, we have to get Ballmer back up here, get him back in the saddle because Polymer's busted on the web. And so this is kind of a helpful thing for us to figure out exactly what is the scope of the problem here. So let's jump. I'm going to see. So we know this is Polymer. I'm going to jump into Battlefield, pull Twitter back up so that if I'm talking to people, I'm not missing out on discussions and stuff. Okay, let's see. Okay. So what we're doing, we're going to be looking into the unresolved attribute to figure out exactly what lends the unresolved attribute from being removed. And I'm kind of curiously, I'm just going to open up the Polymer website real quick and see if in their documentation they just spell it out explicitly. So Polymer is spelled exactly like you would expect it to be. It's the on Bing, I just did a search for Polymer and it's the second result. Use the platform to build a better web. So let's see, we're going to jump from here into, where's the documentation? Where's the documentation, peoples? You know what I can actually do is, I might be able to go and do a site-based search. So if you do site : Polymer project.org, I believe. Let's just do a search for the word unresolved release notes. Nope, that doesn't help. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the site and just see if I can find in the documentation. So I am noticing, I'm noticing that the Polymer site too. If I pull that up real quick, I'm gonna open up a new tab here. And I'm going to do a search for Polymer because the Polymer side appears to be using the unresolved attribute as well, because you can see it kind of flash and transition in and out as well. So here's the Polymer project. You notice it kind of, we get a slight FOUC, FAUC or whatever. You see that content that came in, then it all disappeared, and then it came back in again. Presumably that is because the attribute was there and then was removed. And so we can actually tell if we come down here and we do a quick search for the, here it is, Polymer 1.0. We can just pull that over, and actually we don't even need to pull that over. We can remove that. We can inspect it from here. We'll look at the syntax view, and we'll go down to the body element. And I suspect the body, yep, so they actually have the unresolved attribute on there as well. But you'll notice that on Polymer, there's no issue. The unresolved attribute is actually ultimately removed. So there's something different. Now this gives me hope, because this means that Polymer is not itself busted across the web. Polymer works, very, very competent engineers build this tool. And in fact, I might have met a couple of them in Brazil like a couple years ago. Super smart people. And yeah, I'm kind of glad that it's not Polymer. So there's something about Battlefield then that is busted well beyond the responsibility of Polymer. And so let's see if we can maybe jump back in here. And I'm going to try and start to pull some stuff out. You know what? I still want to kind of go into the DevTools real quick and see if we can figure out what specifically yields or results in that tag being popped off of there. So we'll check out the debugger, and inside the debugger, like it's very simple. We know what the keyword is. We're looking for that word unresolved because it has to be, popped. There's something calling the remove attribute method on the body element, and it is presumably passing the unresolved string or a variable that references it to the see, Ryan Conrad is distracting me. So it says the Battlefield works in IE11, interestingly. So that's a good thing to know, that if it is the case that this works inside IE11, which we can test it out real quick. So we'll just do run iExplorer, and we'll paste that URL. Uh-oh. Let's try this again. Maybe it was iExplorer. Yep, okay. So it opens up inside IE. You have to excuse the DPI issues. There is a... yeah, I don't want to install a link or anything. So yeah, you'll notice it did actually fire up just fine. Whoa, there's a session-based issue here with certificate error from Fiddler. But yeah, that worked just fine. So actually, you know what? This is a good thing, because what this means is there's a regression. We have code in the platform that this used to run on. What I want to do at this point then, I want to check the... I'm going to turn off capturing real quick, and I want to check the console output from these two browsers. So inside IE11 here on the left, and again, I've got some DPI issues that make this completely illegible. We're going to hide this, and I want to inspect the element here. Dev tools be tiny. Where is my resizer? Oh, what's going on? What's going on, computer man? Okay. All right, I'm trying to get this down there. I think the issue is my... Okay, I was zoomed in. Console. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit on this. 275, why not? I'll open up this one here. And the console. There's a couple issues here where we're actually not getting these two requests. And so that might actually be part of the problem. What is going on? Okay. So if I refresh this, let's see if we get any output in the console. We get code on this page is disabled back and forth caching. Nope, no worries. Really no issues whatsoever. And the page loads up just fine. So the issue here is these two things. Not found. Server has not found anything matching the requested URI. Oh, wait, look at this. Redirect was blocked for cores. Redirection problem occurred. Okay, I'm not worried about those then. Let's take a look. So, common variables.css. I really think it's strange that that these are even being requested. I mean, variable sounds like it's some type of preprocessor syntax. Maybe that was at play there. Let me see if I just copy this item and I'm going to try pasting it into Chrome and seeing if Chrome can actually pick up that URI. So I'll start deleting from here. Okay. Really? I thought I had that correct. Oh, I guess I may not even have Chrome installed on this machine. You know what we can do with Fiddler though is you can actually send out requests. So I think I might be able to do. Where was it? There's somewhere here where you can actually author a new request. But we could actually just try and find this request in there and then give it an autoresponder to see if that magically resolves things. So refresh this. It is for, it's 2 404s that are going to come back. Oh, not capturing traffic. Dominique, thank you for the kind words on Twitter. So let's try this again. We're over here, refresh that. Now we're getting it. Okay. There's going to be a couple 404s inside here. And again, you know, this is so weird where we are seeing this MP4 situation where this just looks like it's not at all, it's not constructing this URL properly. So I'm curious about that. That might be where I turn my attention for just a bit. But I do want to find as well, those are the only 404s that I'm seeing immediately. Here's a 404. That's the, okay, so this is for the variables. So that's the 404 that comes back. This is the, up on top is the headers for the request itself. So you can see this request is sending, I still have Portuguese Brazilian set as my settings. Yeah, that's it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an autoresponder for that particular request. And we don't need to just decode that. So we have this. Instead of a 404, I'm going to respond with, so that's a CSS file. I'll respond, actually I think we can just edit the response here. And instead of a 404, we can give this a 202 or 200 or something. I think it's just 200 OK, right? So I'm just modifying the headers here. And then the syntax view, I'll just strip out all of that. And I also want to make sure that my type is not text HTML, but instead text/CSS, because I'm creating a fake CSS file. So let's save that. Okay. And I'm thinking it's all still visible up on screen. Okay, I'm going to try this again. I'm going to delete all of my sessions here so I have a nice clean screen. And let's try this one more time. So I'm going to request. You see that 404 that listed up there. There's those funky ones that aren't constructing the URL correctly. Here's my 404 that was overridden. We shouldn't see, here's a not supported error. Minified web components min.js. So at this point, we talked a bit about the ability to hot swap out versions of jQuery in the past. And whenever you're debugging someone else's website, you don't want to be doing that in minified code. That's just not cool, man. Like, no, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemies. Minified and obfuscated code is just the worst. Like, seriously, it's just the worst. So fortunately, with the web, if there's a web components.min.js, by and large, we can just go get the full version of that, and we can replace the contents of the min file with the full version. And so I'm going to go ahead and find out web components.min.js. I'm going to go out here and just see if I can grab. I'm going to turn off the capturing and just see if we can go out and grab a web components uncompressed file so that we can get this thing going. So let's see. We'll try about the project. Where do I download? Let's see. Web components.js. That's how I just do a search for that. Let's see what we get. Web components.js. Webcomponents.org. Okay. Webcomponents.js. All right. This looks like what I want. It'd be amazing if there was a CDN available. I'm sure there is probably somewhere. I'm going to save this. I'll save this to my desktop and oh, it's downloaded as a zip. Okay. All right. Well, let me see here. Have to get this on my machine real quick. But essentially what we're going to be doing, if you were in the first broadcast, oh, okay, actually, oh. So Ryan, okay, Ryan, you may have stumbled across something that is very important here. So Ryan says, I'm not sure if it's relevant, but Edge throws not supported on document.import node in elements EA element JS, while IE does not. In any case, it seems odd. That is odd. I'm going to download this real quick. I actually came across a bug. It was around July 26th or so. It was when the TC39, the ECMAScript technical committee, was meeting here on the Microsoft campus. I was kind of working on this Stack Overflow question, and someone was saying, hey, in Internet Explorer, I can open up a new window, and I can take elements and text from this first window, and I can put them into that second one. And in Edge, when you try to do that, you open up the second window, and you try to put stuff there, but the moment you get to that barrier, it just breaks. And you simply can't get your elements over there. And I was like, oh my goodness, like, man, if we broke this, that's really bad. Like, if you can't get elements from one window into another like that, my goodness. And they're on the same domain, and they're on the same origin, all this stuff is the same. And so I decided, okay, I need to look into this. And I started to peel back kind of the layers of this, and I realized what exactly jQuery does whenever you are, when the context. And so if you're familiar with jQuery, you start out with a $, open paren, some stuff, usually a string or a function in the case of the shorthand for document.ready. And then there's the closing paren. And that first section there, the $, the paren, your junk, and then the closing paren, that represents the initialized jQuery object. And the items that are between the parens there, so whatever you put between the paren, that's going to ultimately become the context of your jQuery object itself. And so inside your jQuery object, if you use the keyword this, it's going to be referenced to whatever that thing is up there. So if you pass in $, open paren, window, close paren, and then you do some stuff in the function, you reference this, well, this is going to be the window. And so what happens was, this individual, and all this is kind of a roundabout way to get back to Ryan Conrad's point here about importing nodes, and this may or may not be relevant, but it's fun just to chat. It's Saturday, what are we doing? And so what happens was, this particular user, they did var window, or not var window, because window's a protected word right now, but var win equals window.open, and that's a function. And what that does is it pops up a new window or a new tab, and it returns a reference for that window or that tab back into that win variable. So var win equals window.open. Once that pops up, win is now a reference to a window. If your pop-up blocker or something like that stops it, well, then you're going to have a null value there, and win doesn't point to anything. In fact, if the window tries to pop up and a pop-up blocker prevents it even just for a moment, your win is not going to point to anything. And so so now you have win, and that references this second window that's opened up over there. And so what this individual did is they had $, open paren, win.document.body. And so what they're doing is they're starting to look into that second window. They're going from the window object, which is that big global object, and they're checking out the document node on there, which is one smaller piece of it. It's actually a huge piece of it. And then as far as like weight of an object goes, and then it looks inside the document object for the body object, which is a reference on the DOM to the body element. So it's the same thing as doing like document.getElements by tag name body, or document.querySelectorAll body, or querySelector body, or whatever. You can also do document.body, and so they're calling $ open paren win.document.body close paren, and that's a reference, a jQuery object that references that second window's body. And then what they do at this point is they pass in some HTML. They call the append method from jQuery, which is $.fn.append if you're looking at jQuery source. And they pass in some HTML, just a string full of HTML. So jQuery takes this string and it looks at it, realizes, okay, I have a window reference here that's pointing me to the body element, and they want to append, but they didn't give me a node, they gave me a string. So you can't append a string. You have to turn that string into something. And so by and large, you would turn it into a text node or something like that. But if you turn it into a text node, then all of your HTML inside there, your angle brackets and stuff, they're going to be converted, and there's going to be plain text on the web page instead of like parsable HTML. And so what they do is they create this div just out of nowhere, just ex nihilo. They create a div, and they take the div and they take your HTML string and they set that as the inner HTML of that div. So they temporarily bind it all to that. What happens is the browser then parses all of that HTML, constructs a bunch of child nodes, depending on what your HTML string was. If you just had a paragraph inside there, it'll construct a single child node and it'll put that paragraph inside there. And so now it no longer has a string to mess with, it has an actual tree, a subtree, a little piece of the DOM right there. Starts with that div that they made, and then it has all of your stuff on the inside. So now they can look inside that div, and they want to examine the children of that div, and all of those children are now the manifestation of the string that you gave it. So if your string had 5 sibling elements inside there, well, this div will have 5 sibling elements inside there. And so if you have one element, if your string had a giant div with a bunch of stuff inside it, then you have really one top level element, that div. If your string had 3 divs side by side, then your string has your parent div that jQuery makes is going to have ultimately 3 sibling divs. And so whenever it does that, it simply can't call append child with 3 elements. So you can't pass a HTML collection or something like that to a well, you can't pass like an array or something to append child. So what you have to do is you have to put all of these things into something. You can put them into a div and you can append that div, but now jQuery would be introducing a brand new div whenever you're trying to do this cross-window appending. And so instead of doing that, so they can leave the markup just what you authored and not what they're trying to clean it up to be, they create a document fragment. And document fragments are really cool. So document fragments are a way to carry around a bunch of objects, a bunch of elements, without actually introducing new elements to do that. So it's like putting everything into a basket, but the basket is like biodegradable. And so whenever you append the document fragment to the new window, the document fragment portion just disappears. And those elements are left in the place of that document fragment. And so what happens was, we have a bug that I filed like last week, or I don't even know what today is, a couple weeks ago. We have a bug that you cannot open a new window, create a document fragment from the document of that new window, and then append that document fragment to the body of that new window. So again, you can't open up a new window, create a document fragment from that document of the new window, and then append that same document fragment to the body of the new window. That throws an interface not supported, similar to what Ryan is referencing here when he says, document.import node in EA elements.js throws a not supported in Edge. And so all of that to bring us back to this. That might actually be relevant to what I saw like 2 weeks ago. So it's a bit of a journey to get back here, but it's a fun story. And if you can't tell stories, then like, what the heck are you doing? Let's see. So I'm going to jump in. Let me see if I can see exactly what it is you're referring to. And I'm going to also, just in case, I'm going to get the web components. Oh, spit bubbles. Let's see here. I'm going to get the web components source on my desktop so that I can grab it if I need to. Extract all right here. Okay, so all right, so I have the web components up, and let's jump back into my desktop view. So we'll switch back to this view, and we're back inside here. So I have the web components set up here. Here's web components min.js. That's 115 kilobytes. We could actually jump over here real quick if we wanted to, and we could check, the size of the body. I'm going to turn the font size down just because it doesn't really work all that neat. Let's see, that's inside appearance. We'll go down to 10. We'll press OK. So, yep, let's go ahead and look at the site real quick. So that's not capturing. I don't want Fiddler interacting with my traffic right now. I love you, Fiddler, but I want you to just stay out of my way for right now. And we're going to pull up this section here, jump back over to Battlefield, and as it was pointed out, there is an interface not supported or just a not supported message. It may have been interface not supported, but let's go ahead and see what we have here. I want to open up DevTools. So not supported error. This is on 11. Oh, that's right. So this is the error that I was just that caused me to want to go get web components min.js. So let's go ahead and replace web components min.js with the fuller one. So now I am going to ask Fiddler to begin capturing traffic, and we're going to jump inside here, and I'm going to go ahead and delete all of my cache so that we get new requests for everything. We're not going to get cache data. And I believe you can do this just inside Fiddler as well. You can actually have Fiddler delete your cache for you, but I am a mediocre to intermediate Fiddler user. So there's some things that I still, I have not fully realized the potential of Fiddler in many ways. So we'll refresh this. Now we're going to be looking for the CSS file. I'm sorry, no, the JavaScript file for web components. So here's ES6 promises. We are looking for web components right here. And you notice the size is about the same size as what we saw in the file there. So it's 118,000 bytes or so. And if we look back at the file, over here it was 115. So that's just a few bytes like different. And you know, who knows what the change here. So these are probably a different version number, but it's pretty much the same size. Likely we can just swap it out. So what I'm going to do is going to create an autoresponder, and down here you notice there's the exact request. I can test this. It'll tell me if the URL passes for that. What I want to do though is I want to tell it to respond with a file, and I'm going to go to my desktop, and on here I'm going to do web components, and I'm going to get that full JavaScript file. So what I'm doing is I'm telling it whenever the minified JavaScript file is requested, go ahead and respond with this large JavaScript file that's on my file system. So I'm going to save that, and I'm going to refresh. And now you'll notice, so before the not supported message was coming from character or line 11, character 13,398. So nobody wants to debug that. Nobody. You'd have to be a madman. So instead, we're going to refresh this. We're going to see if a new request gives us a slightly better approach. So I'm re-requesting with Control-R. We get the hierarchy request error. And here we go. So not supported error, that's on line 977, character 9. So those are much, much better line numbers. The hierarchy request error, oftentimes you'll see that whenever you try to do like document.append child. And what that essentially means is that in this case, you can't append a child to a document, you have to append it to another element. And so if you are trying to put like a div inside of a particular container, but the reference for that container was to the document and not to the body of the document, then you would get this hierarchy request error. In fact, I mean, if we just try to do that right now, if we did document.append child, and we did document.createElement, and we'll just do a div. So you notice there we get the hierarchy request error because you can't put an ad hoc div, or any element rather, directly on the body. We could, however, if we wanted to, come over here and put that on the body. So now you notice we're going to be calling append child off of the body element and not the document element. And so as a result, whenever we hit enter, it happens, we get the div reference back, there's no hierarchy request error. So we'll definitely, let's start out just by looking at that. So 1821, line 11. And let's just kind of, there's that weird funky bug again, where the DevTools opens up a couple times. Let's see what we're looking at here. So we have use native, ensure same owner document, clear child nodes, original insert before .call. Okay, so it looks like they have a reference to the insert before method, which lets you take basically a reference to another child node, and you can put the element that you're appending before another one of its child elements. Let's see. So unsafe, unwrap this, unsafe. So this is going to be the issue, I think, that we might be looking at. Either this or the child wrapper. But essentially they're trying to take a ref node and jam it into, I believe, this element right here, which is going to be child wrapper. And child wrapper is going to be something that simply does not permit that. So if we were to stop right here and we were to hit Control R to refresh the page, it's going to start to execute and it's going to pause right here. And it looks like I just won the lottery and got a couple extra developer tool windows. So let's close those down real quick. And okay, make that right and good. All right, so now we're inside here. We are frozen in execution. So you can see, here's my, yep, you can see original insert before is actually a reference to the native implementation of insert before. So I don't know where they picked this up from. They could have grabbed it off the body element or some other place, who knows, or straight off the document, I don't know. But the context for it is going to be this. This is a reference to the generated wrapper. So actually, if we start to step in, let's see, ref node is a null. So they're trying to append or insert some text before null. Interesting. So yeah, we'll have to step into just a bit. And you know, one of the other reasons why we might actually see, you know, let me do something real quick, because I'm thinking back to the fact that this works inside IE, doesn't work inside Edge. And I suspect that one of the reasons for that could be, and I'm going to just turn off capturing real quick so we're not getting any of our custom code. I want to get just what the page actually is requesting. One of the reasons for this is Polymer is, you know, pre-Edge. So Polymer was constructed before Edge was even a thing. And so Polymer has logic in there that presumably detects IE and may send IE down a different code path than it would Edge. Edge has a more Chrome-like user agent string. And so we would expect Edge to go down a different code path whenever it encounters some UA sniffing and stuff like that. And so, I mean, if we were just to come into the debugger and look up user agent and do a quick check, we should expect to see, yeah, so here's a test to see if we are Firefox. So they're checking this Firefox regular expression to see if navigator user agent responds Firefox. That would be false in our case. Here's Trident Edge, so that would be true. So you can see they are trying to detect what browser you are using, and they then assign that the value to Z. We're inside Web Components min. Yeah, I was gonna say I could turn on Fiddler again so we get the full unpacked Web Components file. But this is okay. Like, this isn't really a big point, but we kind of know that they are doing some user agent sniffing inside here. MSIE, so that would be true for older versions of IE, not for IE 11, I don't think. And looks like that might be the last instance of it, or I'm just frozen. I'm frozen, yeah, because I think the references cycle around. They won't actually get you to the last and then do nothing. I mean, I suppose if they did, you could use Shift Enter to go back up through the history. But it seems like I just am frozen here. So that's on a VM, fortunately, so I don't have to worry about that messing up anything. Great. Okay. Yep. Okay, so we'll just have to do with what is this? Smart sizing. I totally forgot about this. Okay, yeah, so the VM itself is kind of freaking out on me. Let's see if I can kill the execution of that script. I closed the wrong Internet Explorer, or the wrong Edge, rather. I'm trying to think here. I need to send, what is that? How do you send control delete? Oh, goodness. My VM skills are weak. Help! That's not going to work. I may have to, I've got this machine right here, and so I may have to actually, I don't know, do something over there to get that to not be so locked up. Let's see here. Let me switch over to the top cam so you don't have to look at the frozen window. Oh, Control Alt End. Well, let's see. So let's try this. I'll do Control Alt End. Nope. I'm totally locked up on this thing. Wow. Let's try Control Alt Insert. Actually, I don't have. Ah, yeah, we do. That's a big negatory as well. That's okay though. I'll actually go ahead and just log in from this machine over here and free it up. This is what development looks like anyway, people. This is what you have to deal with. Yep. So it's actually working now. Let me see if I can kill this remote session and then jump back in there again. One of the keys around delete. Well, I suppose like one of the keys around delete on my Surface Book is detach the monitor key. So I don't want to just, it might be backspace. I don't know. Like, I don't want to mess with it though. And then like pop the monitor off. It falls on the floor and then we all just have to go home crying. So let's see here. Let me see if I can call up my remote desktop again. Give me power. All right, we are connectifying. And I think it's connecting. I mean, it says it's connecting, and I'm like, hey, I believe computers. I mean, you're crazy if you don't believe computers. It's connecting. We'll just wait for it. I got all day, man. You know what I'm saying? It's Saturday. I'm just here to debug code. I just need my network to work. Let's see. Configuring remote session, taking its precious time. Let's try this one more time. What is that? It's not the computer I want. Oops, that's not the key I want. This is what web development looks like, though. So if you're thinking, you know, web development's kind of awesome, I think I might want to get into that. Just realize it. There's gonna be a lot of days where you're just trying to figure out what the heck is going on. All right, let's see here. This works. So Ryan is on the ball. Ryan has identified one of the next steps, if I could actually get connected to my VM, is to adjust the UA sniffer and see if the, well, adjust the UA string rather. So inside your developer tools, there's an emulation tab, which it's not really emulation, but that's probably one of the better words that we can use that the vast majority of people don't understand. So there's an emulation tab inside there, and then from there you can actually change the UA string. And the UA string, again, is just this giant string that identifies the browser or even the device that you're on. It identifies more than that too. Sometimes it identifies some of the plugins that you have installed, like if you have Java or Flash or something like that. It can communicate those that information too. Why is this not working? And you can change the UA string so that Edge will identify itself as IE, and then see if the Battlefield site in turn treats Edge any better or worse. Oh no, I don't want to restart this machine. I have an update that's pending. Let's see. Let's see, I may just have to update this thing. So I've got this machine sitting here and it's just waiting to be updated to the next build. And I was hoping that I would be able to persuade it to just leave me alone for like 4 hours. But it might actually have something to do with why I can't connect to it over remote desktop. Let's see, let's try this one more time. Signing out on there. Let's see if I can log in from here. So I need like a whole crew to run the whole video broadcast and keep everything running smoothly while I get to just hang out and debug stuff. Nice. So this is cool. I just got an update from, looks like, yeah, so there was a bug that I worked on, I don't know, maybe yesterday. And it actually, so this was another jQuery issue, and it kind of revealed a bug in Edge. No, this wasn't an Edge bug. What was this? This was I think this was another one of those things where jQuery 1.11 was being used, and jQuery 3.1, for instance, behaved very different. What was this? Actually, I think there was a bug in Edge. I'm looking now. Yep, okay, there was a bug in Edge. In fact, I'll share the reduction here inside the chat. So if anyone's curious, you can see it. I believe that link right there should work. Should go to Jay's Fiddle. And if you test that in Edge, you'll see a big nasty fail. Like it's just not working. And I guess I can talk about this just briefly until the remote desktop thing begins to work. But essentially what was happening is, if you go to, I think it's the Phoenix web server, not Phoenix like Phoenix, Arizona, but Phoenix like F-E-N-I-X web server. In fact, I'll post the link for that as well. So that is phoenixwebserver.com. If you go to the phoenixwebserver.com website in Microsoft Edge, what you'll notice is Edge will jump down to the very bottom of it and always like start. So there's a bit of a loading animation, and then Edge starts way down at the very bottom. And it was kind of wild because it's a really cool site. Looks like a great product, but for some reason Edge would just jump straight down like 80% down the page whenever the page loads. And so I was like, what in the world is like going on here? This is really odd that it would be doing this. And so I started pulling some stuff, exactly what we were doing before with Fiddler, created an autoresponder, and then just started pulling out one line of code at a time, for references to other lines of code. So if you start pulling out like one link tag or one script tag, if they seem to sound a bit harmless, and then you start to refresh the site, and then finally I got down to this line of code. There were 2 lines of code basically that I boiled the whole site down to. One was, and they're both jQuery, so one was to go out and find an input element and give it focus. So, jQuery selector for an input element, and then call the focus method at the very end. And it's delegating all of this off to jQuery to do. So it's calling the jQuery focus method, which has jQuery figure out how to call focus. And then the other one was a reference to the window, I believe, and setting the scroll top to 0. And as a result, Chrome and Firefox would both load the page and have you at the very top. Edge would load the page and then immediately take you down to the very bottom, which is like you can't be any more different than that. Like those are like bizarrely different experiences. And so it was really interesting. Got to go in there and look at that, and I realized, okay, what happens here is that whenever you have that selector that is looking for the input element it actually finds, it's way down on the bottom of the page, at the very, very bottom. It's at the notifications, like a newsletter type of sign up thing, or updates, register for updates. And that issue is actually taking you all the way down there. And so in Edge and Chrome and Firefox, and all 3 of these, if you don't call that window scroll top 0, all of them will take you down to the very bottom immediately. Then there's the next line of code, which calls scroll top 0. And it's asking jQuery to call scroll top 0. And as a result, what jQuery ultimately does is it calls the, where was that line? Let's see. Yeah, so it's actually in my reduction there. jQuery winds up calling the Windows scroll to, which is a native method, and then passes 0 in for the first argument, which is your X axis. So scroll all the way to the left, and then 0 in for the second argument, which is your Y axis, which means scroll all the way to the top. So they're telling it, if your page has scroll bars on the bottom and scroll bars on the right, to just scroll to the very top left of your web page. And that works and everything. It winds up working inside Chrome and Firefox and stuff. But you'll notice inside Edge, if you run the reduction that I just pasted into the chat room there, that t.co link, that'll take you to JS Fiddle. What I'm doing is I'm giving the body about 10,000 pixels of padding on the top. That is to push in my input control way down below the viewport. And then I'm creating an input, and I'm dynamically appending it to the body element. So you see that they're on line 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then whenever you call append child, the child is not only inserted into the DOM, but a reference to that child is returned back out. And so on line 7, you'll see I'm calling .focus, which is actually calling the focus attribute off of the element that was returned from the append child method. So now we have this input in there. It's 10,000 pixels below the top of the page, which means we now have a scroll bar. And we call window.scroll200, which is supposed to take the window all the way back up and to the left. Or all the way back up and to the left. And what happens is if you check the page Y offset, which is the scrolling offset of the page, if you check that immediately, then everything works fine. Like Edge reports, yep, we're at 0 and stuff. But if you check it after a short delay, you'll notice on line 23, on line 19 and 23, I'm creating a set timeout. And on line 23, I have right curly brace, comma, 1, paren, semicolon. Well, the 1 there references 1 millisecond. So essentially, we're scheduling this check for 1 millisecond in the future. Don't do it immediately. Like, check it in the future. It's absurd to say 1 millisecond in the future, but technically, that's what it means. And so what we wind up doing is we go into the document.body class list. Class list is something that was added around IE 10, I think, late in IE 10, maybe around the Windows 8.1 update. And we add a class list to that. And if the window page Y offset is equal to 0, which we expect it to be, because we called window scroll 2 0 0, then we add the class pass. If it's anything other than equal to 0, which it shouldn't be, we add the class fail. And so this was the reduction that we ultimately wound up with inside Edge. And so, I was able to file a bug and say, yes, this is a problem with Edge. It's not a problem with jQuery. So actually, I need to respond to this guy's tweet, because jQuery isn't really to blame here. If I pull this aside, I don't think... So this is Corey Butler. Yeah, I don't think this isn't really much. I'm going to respond right now, because this isn't a jQuery issue. This is just the way the page is scripted. So let's see, sending that tweet now to Corey Butler. So yeah, that was a pretty cool thing. That issue didn't take nearly as long as the first issue we faced today, but it's still very cool nonetheless. All right, let's see. My remote desktop does not seem to be working for some reason. Try this one more time. Insignificant. Can you be more specific? So you're saying the, I mean, you guys can see the chat window right here, but basically reporting issues with the share button. It's probably not an area that I will know much about, because that's a component of the browser itself, and my sphere of influence and my knowledge is really in the web platform, so the HTML, CSS, JavaScript, the core components of the web standards. But I'm totally able to, if you click on it, nothing happens. Yeah, that wouldn't be cool. That's pretty sure that's not how it's supposed to work. Let's see here. Which version of Edge are you working with? Is this the interesting? So Windows H works, but clicking on it does not. .14.393. Okay, so yeah, you're on the anniversary update, right? So 14.393.6 or .10. Okay, I think I'm gonna get back into my system now. I might be connecting. Configuring the remote session. It's seriously trying to do it. There it is. It's trying. Yeah, I might just have to ignore that for right now. That doesn't look like it's going to go. Yeah, I'm not quite sure why that remote desktop is not working. may just I may just let it reboot, install its new build, and go from there. I'll do that. So we'll do update and restart. Although now this machine is going to be out of commission for a little bit. It's not the update screen I was expecting, so maybe not too long. Well, we'll see. We'll let that restart. Kind of curious. Let's see if there's something else we can maybe talk about. Some, the big changes in Edge here recently. We actually, so we got support for web notifications, which is really pretty cool. I'll leave this Battlefield window up that I have right here. I'm going to hold on to that just in case my other machine pops back up and we can start to look at that again to see exactly what is causing the unsupported interface issue, because I suspect that may have something to do with what I submitted as a bug a couple of days ago for the jQuery issue that I was just talking about. But so web notifications are really cool. Let's see, I'm going to minimize this, and I'll have to do this on my desktop here though, so that's okay. We'll see if we jump into, open up an Explorer window. And we'll probably just spend about 30 minutes or something more and then go ahead and shut it down. Let's see, so I'm going to open up code. So I'm actually getting pinged by one of our engineers here at Microsoft that they are looking at Battlefield as well. And it seems to be working. So, Jen, I think you're out there. I actually have a slightly newer build than the one that you're reporting as well, and I'm seeing issues with it. So, yeah, I'm not really sure. And I suspect, given the JavaScript error that was being reported, that this may be related to the jQuery bug that I was talking about just earlier too, the interface issues. I really hope that we don't have a regression here. Although regressions are the types of things that get fixed pretty quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and let's see. I'll just jump into sharing my screen. And I think I want to go ahead and send a little tweet real quick. Let's see. All right, then I need to get the link to the live broadcast. What is that link? That's see Jonathan Sampson live. Okay. Okay, so tweet is authored. And retweeted. Okay, so looks like this machine is now restarting now as well. Ooh, that's the ugly update screen. This machine might be out of commission for just a bit. We'll see. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and jump in real quick. So I've actually got, I think, my desktop being shared, if I'm not mistaken, right now. And we can jump in and look real quick at kind of how web notifications work in Windows 10. This is one of those things where, we ship a new feature, and it's so subtle, but it's so easy to use, and the impact is so amazing. Like you actually get some really incredible value from this, even though it requires very little effort to set up and get up and running. Let's see here. So I'm kind of curious right now if I jump back over here to top center. I'm going to see what my action center looks like. Okay. Yep. So jump back here real quick, and I'll jump in and just like, so right now I have this, I'm inside Visual Studio Code, really, really awesome. I would encourage you to go get Visual Studio Code. It's at, I think, code.visualstudio.com. I'm going to beef up the UI here and create a new file. We'll just call this index.html. And inside index.html, I'll start out with my doc type. So this is a historical remnant that tells the browser basically what type of rendering engine to use. So if you're in Quarks mode, if you're dealing with very old websites, you kind of want the browser to function much in the same way that it did back in like the late 90s and early 2000s to make sure that the website is actually going to run the way you expect it to. This particular line here is much simpler than it has ever been in history. You used to have to do like this XHTML 1.0 strict and transitional 4.01 and all this kind of crazy stuff, but just by doing the basic doc type with HTML, you opt into the standards mode. And so let's do a HTML tag, and we'll do a head tag, and then a title tag, and we'll call this web notifications. Awesome. And inside the body tag there, and then we'll do like a H1 or something and say like hello world, just to have some content inside that. Now, one of the cool things about Visual Studio Code, probably here of late, one of my favorite features, is the ability to hit Control tilde. So this is the same key stroke that you'd be used to popping up the console in the F12 DevTools. So if you're on like the debugger tab or something like that, you can hit Control tilde and open up the console. From here, I'm going to call HTTP server. And so if you have npm installed, you can do npm install -g HTTP server. That's going to pull down, install this global HTTP server on your machine. If you don't know what that is, it doesn't really matter. I think you'll be okay even if you just double click on the file and open up inside your browser of choice. As long as your browser supports web notifications, which I think presently Chrome, they have a strange implementation where their implementation works across platforms, but it's not actually leveraging the operating system's notification APIs. And so they kind of show like this web notification with their own windowing. So I'm going to kick off this engine. So I have my server running. I'm going to fire up here. I'm going to go to Microsoft Edge :HTTP localhost 8080. So I'm using the Microsoft -Edge protocol to fire up this local server, which is I could use 127.0.0.1:8080, but localhost works as well. So we run that, and I just clobbered the chat window. So let's see here. I'll move this out to a new window. Leave that chat window how it was. Okay. Which extension are you using for HTML? I'm actually using no extensions. I got Visual Studio Code, and I'm the type of person that just likes to keep it as bare bones and basic as they possibly can. I'm not a big fan of going out and getting a bunch of extensions and stuff like that. So this is kind of just how I run. What I have right here is what you get out of the box. So now we have VS Code. I can use Control B as in bucket or something. I don't know, like Bravo. Yeah, I can use Control Bravo to toggle that sidebar. And so we now have, this is my page here loaded up on 8080. You'll notice each time I make a request, you can actually see the request down here. We even talked about the user agent string not too long ago, and the UA string is actually what you see right here. So you can see I made a GET request. So that's the HTTP verb that I used for this particular request. You can do GET. If you're sending data, you'll oftentimes do POST. You may have another one, options, which is you're inquiring of the server some of the options and things that it supports. There's delete verbs, but in this case, again, we're just using GET. And you can see I'm requesting the index page. There's nothing here right now. You can see this was a request for favicon.ico. And then what's next is the UA string. So this is the UA string that identifies the browser on this machine. So you'll notice at the very end of that UA string are the tokens, the token Edge 14393. So that's probably what you're going to see on your machine too. You notice earlier too, I mentioned that we have a slightly more Chrome-like UA string. And so we also have inside here Chrome 51, there's Apple WebKit 537, and pretty much every browser, back to the Netscape days, if I'm not mistaken, has, well, yeah, actually Mozilla 5.0 was Netscape, if I'm not, I think it was. I think that was when Netscape introduced this, was Mozilla 5.0. And then Internet Explorer had to add it too because sites started blocking people based on user agent strings. It was just a whole big mess. And now all browsers are just a bag of lies when it comes to the user agent string for your enjoyment, though. Because without this, you would simply find many websites that have set up barriers that you can't get past, even though they have really no basic justification for having those barriers today. So just, I guess, a bit of an example. Company hires web developer. Web developer goes in, sits in her office, and realizes that, okay, this company's website doesn't work all that well inside Firefox. I'm going to put a message on here that says our site works with Internet Explorer. You should use that. And then she gets promoted and moves off to work at Google or something. And meanwhile, the website there still blocks still blocks Firefox users. And then another web developer comes in and she says, hey man, I'm totes like all about fixing this website and I want to make it amazing. And so she fixes all the bugs. She makes it cross-browser compliant, and it's working everywhere. But then, before she can lift that restriction off of the Firefox users, she gets promoted, goes off to work at Apple or something. And now you have a site that works, but is blocking people. Or alternative situation, let's go back to the first developer, and she's building this site, and she's like, I'm going to use modern functionality. IE6 doesn't support it. So I'm just going to tell IE users that they need to download a different browser. And so then she gets promoted and goes off. Again, everyone's getting promoted. And she goes and works at, HP or something, I don't know, Microsoft. And then what happens is Internet Explorer, our team here, we're like, oh man, we can't get into foobar.com or something. And so we need to figure out what is broken. So what we do is we change our UA string, and then we gain access to the site. We realize that, okay, we've got these 10 problems on the site that we need to address. Otherwise, our users, we can't justify asking the site maintainers to lift that restriction so our users can get in. So Internet Explorer 6 fixes all these problems. Internet Explorer 7 comes out, and now Internet Explorer 7 is fully capable of running that site. But that block is still in place because it was set up historically when IE6 was still, the cat's meow or whatever. And so, I said the cat's meow. Wow, that's so embarrassing. And so, basically, this UA string now is a result of browser vendors not being able to persuade people to lift those blocks off of their sites. So instead, what happens is the IE people say, okay, well, if the developer is not there to lift this restriction or to even vet our work to make sure our browser works, what we're going to do is make a slight modification to the UA string so that the UA sniffing that she put in place will no longer pass. And so we've done that, and now we're able to get all of our users back into the site. So if you look at the UA string in any browser, it's crazy looking. It's pretty wild looking. That's why you should never engage in UA sniffing. It is not cool, man. Feature detection is where it's at. So let's see here. What are we doing? We have the site up. What I actually want to do now is, so suppose we have, let's do an input control real quick. So I'm going to do inputs, and I'll do a quick button. Oops. Okay, so there's my button, and we'll say schedule. And so what we have now is a text input, which is going to default. Actually, if we just took out type equals text, type equals text is actually the default mode for an input element. So if we were to come back up here and just refresh, you'll notice that we're going to have an input element and the schedule button right there. And so this is our page. We can say, hello world and stuff. We can put that inside there and hit schedule, and it doesn't do anything. There's no logic bound up. We do have the clear button there that we can knock that out. But that's basically all it is. So let's go ahead and we will set some script in place. Now, at this point, whenever you think about the parsing of this document, it's going to start from the very top and it's going to go to the bottom. And so inside script, I can't just simply do var button equals document.querySelector button. That is what I would like to do, to tell it to go out and to find this button and store a reference to that button inside here. But I can't do that because at this point, whenever this script is evaluated, we're on line 6. But the button is never created until line 10. So you can't get a reference to something that doesn't exist until a future date. And so what we have to do is we actually have to tell this code to hold off on evaluating until lines 1 through 12 have all been parsed and the DOM has been created and the button exists, then run our code so that we know the button exists and we can go out and get it and stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this. We're going to hold on to that. And instead we're going to do document add event listener DOM content loaded. So it's a bit of a lengthy item there. We'll get the event here. I'm using ES6 arrow function, so we actually don't need a variable there. We can just put empty parens since we're not going to be using that event object. But at this point, everything inside this function right here is going to be executed once the DOM content loaded event of the document object has fired. And that doesn't fire until all the DOM content, the document object model content, has been loaded. So all of this stuff has to be created and then that event will fire. So now I can put that reference inside there. And if we want to, we could say button.textContent equals woot loaded. And we can go back and we can refresh this, and you'll see whenever we actually do so, whenever the document is loaded, the text won't say schedule, even though that's what it says inside the document. It says woot loaded because we've replaced that text. So I've got a reference to the button. Now I need to get a reference to the input. So I could use let or var. I'll use var for consistency just in this particular example. And we'll do document.querySelector input. And I really don't like having the shorter one on the bottom. This is like aesthetics through and through. And we'll put that right there. And so now we have input and button. And what we'll do now is we're going to add an event listener for the button. So we'll say button add event listener, just like we did for the document up above. But instead of DOM content loaded, we're going to listen for the click event. And I don't need that event. And then what we're going to do inside here is we can just do like a alert input.value. And so we're going to alert whatever that input value is. And then we're going to just say input.value equals blank. So after the alert, we're going to empty that input out. So we jump back in here. Refresh, so nothing looks like it happened, but we actually have a new event listener on this button here. So if we write boo and hit schedule, it actually is going to alert the input value. Pressing OK, you'll notice there's boo in there right now. And pressing OK is going to clear that. So now we no longer have that. Hello. We can tab over to schedule, hit space. It's going to show us that, and now it's starting to worry that maybe we're getting spammed by prompts. So it's going to ask if we want to stop prompt messages or alerts on this page. I'm going to just say OK, leave that unchecked. But now what I want to do is I want to come down here, and I think we're going to just create a real basic web notification. So before we even do a web notification, we need to check to see that we actually have support for web notifications. So I'm going to say, let's see, we'll say, we'll do if notifications in window, I think. So what we're doing is we're looking for the presence of a notifications constructor in the window object. And notifications is essentially what we're going to use to create one. So we'll do notification dot request permission. You don't want anyone just jamming notifications on your screen when you drop into a site. So we get that permission object back, which is going to be a string. And we're going to say if permission is tightly equal to granted, then we can show the notification. So that's what we're going to do right there. Otherwise, else, can't show it. They don't want to see it at that point. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, in this case, if this test fails, so if notifications is not inside Windows, then we can just do the alert input.value and then set input.value equal to nothing. Let's see. Yep, to nothing. But up here, if it is in there, what we actually want to do is create the notification. So we'll say new notification. And actually, you know what? It's not notifications, it's notification. I'm pretty sure it's singular. And the first value is title, and the second value is an object. And so inside that object, we'll pass a body property, and that will be equal to input.value. And then after the notification, we'll do input.value equals blank. So this is just kind of scratching out some really basic code. You could always go through and refactor this, make it much nicer, have a much better plan B just in case they don't have notification support. But you'll notice what we do once we come back and we refresh the page, nothing happens yet. But if I put a comment in here and say hello world, and I hit schedule, it's going to ask me if I want to allow notifications. That's that request permission portion right there. Yes. And then there's my notification title, hello world. So you can see the two values there. Hello world comes from my input and title comes from my JavaScript right there. There's actually another really cool thing you can do. If we open up this tab here and we go to like Sampson.ms, and I believe that should work. Another thing you can do is you can find an image. For instance, I have a picture of my beautiful face right here. We can just press copy. Now if I'm pasting that into a text environment, I'm going to get the URL of that. So this is a text environment. There's actually an icon property you can use too. So inside here, I'll do icon. And then as a string, save that, save. And then what happens is if I come down inside here again and I click refresh and I do testing, schedule, I think I've actually broken the notifications portion on Windows. Oh, this is a really somewhat unstable build right now for me. It's while I'm broadcasting. Let's see here if I can clear that out real quick. Let's see, so I need to close this. That's the chat. Yeah, ES6 has actually been supported inside the browser for quite a while. Okay, I just had to actually hit, let's see. ES6 has been supporting Edge for a little while now. We actually, if you check the Kingx support tables, historically, like we've been kind of leading the way, which is really exciting for Edge. It's definitely an issue here. Running into quite a lot of issues with Edge today. Actually, not with Edge. This is with the whole OS. So, like, I'm not able to open up my Action Center right now. So I'm going to go ahead and kill my Explorer. Yeah, even my task manager is kind of freezing up on me. Okay, here we go. Let's see. I do have a few remote desktop connections just kind of sitting here. I wonder how much this is just some straight processes running amok in my machine. Okay, so now it looks like after closing those, my task manager is opening again. So let's try this again. Let's do back up into Edge. There's only Battlefield here, so I can jump back into localhost 8080. So you remember just before I had to kind of put this whole thing on hiatus, what we have now is the body element, or the notification has two arguments. The first one is the string that's a title. The second one is an object that has two properties. One of them is a body property. One of them is an icon property that references an image. There's a bunch of other properties if you check MDN. But right now, if you think about across browsers, kind of this is what the subset is that pretty much everyone supports. And so if we actually have permission is granted here. We'll save that. We can type in a message like hello world. And now, whenever we schedule this, my notification actually has my picture in it, as opposed to just, some, I don't even remember what it had before, maybe just the Edge logo. You can see where it came from, the domain, the message, and the title. All is nice and good. We can actually, if we wanted to, you can, after you do this, you can actually say, I want to do var in equals. So now in is a reference to the notification. You could also do in add event listener, and handle a click event for that as well. So here we do event for that actual event itself. And if you wanted to, you could append stuff to the body. So we could say document.body.text content equals clicked or something, and that is going to say like, okay, we've actually clicked this input element or this notification. And I don't think it's going to work again. I believe I just screwed up my task manager. Let's see real quick. So we'll do foo schedule. Yep, no notification coming out. Let me check here again real quick. Before it was those remote desktop connections. It doesn't look like I'm dealing with those now. This is fantastic. This is software though. Like it's doesn't quite work as well today as I would hope it would. Let's see. Yeah, something is really eating it up. Anywho, well, by adding the event listener on the notification itself, it's okay. I'm pretty much done for the day. By adding the event listener on notification, you can actually start to cause more interactions. Whenever you click on that element out there in the UI that's in your action center too, if you hit Windows key A, it'll span open your action center. You can actually see the notifications there that were fired before. If you click on one of those, even if your browser, oh goodness, it just now came up for me. Okay, so even if you click on one of those, even if your browser is minimized, what happens is that it'll pull your browser right back up. It'll give focus to your body, and at this point, you could then, as had in my code, you can say document.body.text content equals nothing, or you could reference a list of items on the page itself and maybe append the title or the body from the notification. It's really is a pretty cool feature. I just, for some reason today, this machine isn't working as well as I would like it to, so I'm gonna have to figure out what exactly is causing that, maybe file a few bugs, and hopefully next Saturday we'll have a more bug-free experience. But I do appreciate everyone hanging out with me. Thank you all so very much with for the questions and everything. Not able to see the chat window here, so yep. So Mateo, And Anil and everyone, thank you all for the back and forth, the discussion, the bugs, and the assistance in kind of debugging things. So I'll see you all next weekend. But yeah, thank you very much. This is Jonathan Sampson from the Edge team signing off. Have a good week, everyone.